Folks, flathead catfish are one of the most captivating, mysterious, and pursued catfish anywhere. Catfish anglers around the country spend thousands of dollars and travel hundreds of miles to find these elusive catfish. The variation in color, the tremendous fight, and that huge mouth all make these fish worth the time, money, and effort spent in catching them. While all of us would love to catch a state or world record flathead catfish, new records for these fish, even at the state level, don't happen often. While we've seen a lot of blue catfish state records beaten in the past 10 to 15 years, we've seen nowhere near as many flathead catfish records broken. Back in 2020, I did a video on this channel, I'll put you a link to it down in the description below, where I talked with some different anglers about world record class flathead catfish. One of the folks I spoke with was Steve Douglas, Catfish Hall of Fame legend here on YouTube and out in the catfish world. I asked Steve why he thinks we have not caught more flathead catfish over 100 pounds.
I'd say there's fish out there, we just need to maybe target them a little differently. Like I say, how many people's fishing with a 15-pound, any kind of carp or anything to make that 100-pounder get enticed? I mean, you know, a 100-pounder, what size face is he gonna have? He's gonna have a mouth that big. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. He's swimming out there. Got to target him a little bit better, I think.
Since that video in 2020, multiple records for blue catfish have fallen, but only a couple have fallen for the flathead catfish. Even with more anglers pursuing flathead catfish and more information available on how to catch them, the records are just not being broken. Are there fewer flathead catfish now? Do they just not grow as big? In that same video back in 2020, I pitched that question to Luke Nichols from the YouTube channel, Catfish and Carp, and here's what Luke had to say.
The introduction of blue catfish has hurt a lot of flatheads. You know, there's a lot of places where flatheads are traditionally top dog, and now we've introduced blue catfish in the last 4 or 5 decades, and that's going to hurt. And I think that's the same reason why you don't see many channel catfish records being even close to being touched. Virginia is a great example. You know, we have channel catfish used to be the native species. Both blue and flatheads were introduced, and it's really hurt the channel catfish. And I think the flathead are maybe experiencing a little bit the same, but that's very location specific. There's plenty of bodies of water where there are no blues, and flatheads you could get 100-pound flatheads all the time. Who knows? As
for new flathead catfish records, there are a couple of states that have set new records. In May of 2023, Michael Worley caught a 66-pound flathead catfish in the Susquehanna River in Pennsylvania. The fish was slightly over 50 inches long and had a 34-inch girth. It eclipsed the previous record of 56 pounds that was set back in 2020. The good news is the fish was released alive, so there's a chance you may be able to go catch it. Prior to that, in North Carolina in 2020, Tyler Barnes broke the record for the North Carolina flathead catfish. His fish tipped the scales at 78.9 pounds. He beat the previous record that Brian Newberger set by just 0.9 pounds. And with this fish, there's more good news. Tyler Barnes released that fish alive back into the river where he caught it. The good news is there are some fish out there capable of breaking state records. In the past several years, there have been a couple of huge catfish that were called flathead catfish that would have set new state records, but there were some small problems that kept that from happening. One of those potential record-breaking fish was caught by Gary Harrell down in Georgia. This was the rarest of rare flathead catfish, a flathead that was over 100 pounds. The fish that Harrell caught was in the Altamaha River and tipped the scales at just over 101 pounds. So you may be asking yourself, why was it not a state record? Well, it wasn't caught on rod and reel, it was caught on a limb line. You see, in almost every state, and according to IGFA rules, for a fish to be eligible for the record book, it has to be caught by sporting means on rod and reel. Catching fish on limb lines, trot lines, in baskets, or shooting them with a bow and arrow is not considered sporting means, and those fish are ineligible for any state records. With so few giant flathead catfish being caught across the country, is there even hope to break the 25-year-old world record for a flathead catfish? I pitched this question out to Chris Souders, who is a renowned tournament angler, and got his opinion on the topic.
I would say you're probably at the top. You know, not saying that there's not one out there somewhere, but getting hooked up with that fish, being able to, you know, do everything right to get that fish in, you know, on the bank or in the boat, I'd say you're at the top of the game. Because, and if there was somewhere to come from, I would say lake. As you know, they don't get pressured as hard. Most lake, you know, no river involved. Lake flatheads, they eat when they want. They don't have to fight current, and they don't get targeted as much.
In my opinion, it will be hard to beat the current world record catfish at 123 pounds. Catfish over 100 pounds are extremely, extremely rare, and going over 110 pounds is, well, virtually unheard of. So to make that jump to surpass 123 pounds, the odds are not very good. As for state records, that's a different story, and I think there are several that are vulnerable. Right here where I live in the Carolinas, I think those records could fall at any time. Both records are sitting right around 79 pounds, and I feel certain there are fish in the 80 to 85 pound range swimming in our waters. Georgia and Florida are two other states that will likely see their state record for a flathead fall within the next decade. With a 101 pound fish being caught on a limb line out of those shared waters, it is possible that their state records could fall. Probably the biggest thing hindering the new state records from taking place is, well, the immense pressure that we are putting on our fisheries. The number of anglers is increasing, the technology to catch fish is getting better, but the bodies of water that we have to fish in are staying the same. This means we as anglers need to release the trophy fish and do what we can to protect the waters that we fish in.